Hello everyone. So, I never thought I would share something like this, but I need to express it, and maybe my story will be a cautionary tale for someone else. I've been watching this for a long time, reading about other people's relationship problems, and I guess it's my turn to share. My name is Jake, and for over a decade I thought I had the perfect marriage. My wife, Sarah, and I had been sweethearts since high school. That's not her real name, but I'll call her that for this story to avoid any unnecessary problems. We had built a life together, a home, and talked about starting a family. She was my best friend, my everything. But about a year ago I started to notice small changes. She became withdrawn, always on the phone, working, late, more often, and there was a new, subtle coldness between us that I couldn't explain. I put it down to the stress of her job. I tried to support her, asking about her day, suggesting we go on dates to reconnect, but she always seemed preoccupied, as if her thoughts were somewhere else. I started to get this sinking feeling in my gut that I just couldn't ignore. It was the little things that added up. She'd never been protective of her phone before, but suddenly it was face down on the couch, and she had a new passcode. She bought new lingerie, which I initially got excited about, but then she never wore it for me. The work dinners were always on a Thursday, and she'd come home smelling like a restaurant, but never brought me any leftovers, which was something she always used to do. My mind was racing, but I kept trying to shut it down, telling myself I was being paranoid and insecure. The last thing I wanted to do was accuse my wife of something so huge without any real proof. But the doubt was like a tiny seed that had been planted, and it was starting to grow. The turning point was a random Tuesday. Sarah was in the shower and her phone, which was usually glued to her hand, was buzzing on the kitchen counter. It was a notification from a messaging app one didn't recognize. Against every better judgment I had, I picked it up. The preview on the screen showed a name I knew, Chloe. Chloe was Sarah's co-worker and had become her best friend over the last year. They were always together. The message preview read, "Can't wait for Thursday night. This week has dragged." My heart just stopped. Thursday was her late work night. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was it. This was the proof I didn't want to find. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I knew her passcode because I'd seen her type it in weeks ago. It was our old anniversary date, which felt like a sick joke. I opened the app and the entire thread loaded. It wasn't just flirting. It was explicit. They were planning a weekend trip together, talking about me, mocking me. Chloe called me oblivious, and Sarah replied with laughing emojis. Reading those words from my own wife felt like being physically punched in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I heard the shower turn off and I quickly put the phone down, my entire world shattered in under 2 minutes. I had to pretend everything was normal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. She came out of the bathroom, smiling and asking what was for dinner, and all I could see were those messages. I made an excuse about feeling sick and went to bed early, just lying there in the dark while my mind replayed every single lie, every late night, every time she made me feel crazy for being suspicious. The woman sleeping next to me was a stranger. The anger and betrayal were so intense I felt physically ill. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just planned. I had to know everything. The next day, I called in sick to work. As soon as Sarah left, I went full detective mode. I accessed our shared phone bill online, something we'd set up for simplicity but I never checked. The call and text logs were staggering. Hours-long calls every night after I'd gone to bed. Hundreds of texts daily, all with the same number. A number labeled in her contacts as Chloe Work. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. The shock was starting to wear off, replaced by a grim, focused determination. I started meticulously documenting everything, taking screenshots and saving them to a hidden folder. I didn't know what I would do with it yet, but I knew I needed evidence. I decided to dig deeper into Chloe. Sarah had always painted her as this kind, supportive, almost shy friend who was new to the city. I looked her up on professional networking sites. Her profile was impressive. She worked in a competitive field at a prestigious firm. She seemed polished and professional. It made the betrayal even more confusing. Why would someone with so much to lose be involved in something like this? I started to feel a new, different kind of anger, not just at Sarah, but at this woman who had willingly helped destroy my marriage. The confrontation happened a few days later. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sat Sarah down and just laid it all out. I told her I knew about Chloe, I'd seen the messages, I knew about the trip. The color drained from her face. She didn't even try to deny it. First, she cried, saying she was confused and that I had been distant, which was a total reversal of the truth. Then, when that didn't work, her tone changed. She became defensive, almost cold. She said Chloe understood her in a way I never could and that their connection was deeper. She tried to justify it all. It was the most heartbreaking and infuriating conversation of my life. The person I loved was gone. I moved into the guest room that night. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. One minute I was so angry I wanted to put my fist through a wall, the next I was sobbing on the floor, mourning the future we had planned together. I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. The grief was a physical weight on my chest, making it hard to get out of bed. I'd look at photos of us from just a year ago and couldn't reconcile those happy people with the nightmare I was living. I was lost. During this time, Sarah was barely home. She was always at Chloe's place. I knew what that meant. The few times we spoke, it was only about practicalities, like dividing our assets. She showed no remorse, only impatience to get the divorce over with. She even had the nerve to say, "Chloe thinks we should," as if her opinion mattered in our marriage. That's when a switch flipped in me. The sadness was still there, but it was now buried under a layer of cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just going to be the victim she walked all over. I decided if my marriage was over, her perfect new life wasn't going to have a smooth start. My revenge wasn't violent or illegal, just precise. I remembered all the documentation I had saved. I knew where Chloe worked and I knew their company had a very strict ethics policy regarding employee conduct, especially between supervisors and subordinates. You see, I discovered Sarah wasn't just cheating with a coworker. Chloe was actually her direct supervisor. This was a major violation. I crafted a simple, factual, anonymous email to the company's HR department. I attached the evidence of their affair, the messages planning trysts during work hours, and even the plans for their trip that coincided with a work conference. I didn't write it with anger. I just presented the facts and let them speak for themselves. Then I hit send. I didn't have to wait long. About a week later, Sarah came home in a complete panic. She was crying real tears this time. She told me Chloe had been fired on the spot for gross misconduct and a violation of her fiduciary duty. The company was conducting a full internal review. Sarah was terrified she was next, convinced her career was also ruined. She was begging me to talk to someone, to say it was all a misunderstanding. I just looked at her and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." The irony was perfect. She had made me feel crazy, and now I was using her own tactic against her. The guilt and fear on her face was something I'll never forget. The fallout continued. Without her high-powered job, Chloe's life apparently unraveled. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had to move out of her expensive apartment, and eventually left the city altogether. The reputation she had worked so hard to build in our city's professional scene was completely destroyed. She became a cautionary tale. Sarah was eventually formally reprimanded at work but kept her job, though any chance of promotion was gone. The social shame was immense for her too. Many of our mutual friends chose sides, and most chose mine once the truth came out. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. It was painful and ugly, but I'm finally through it. I'm in therapy, working on myself, and starting to date again, though very cautiously. I'm learning to trust my instincts again. The anger has mostly subsided, replaced by a sense of weary acceptance. What happened was awful, but it forced me to see a truth I was blind to. Looking back, I'm not proud of the revenge I took, but I'm not ashamed of it either. It was a moment of taking back power in a situation where I felt completely powerless. My advice to anyone going through this is to first, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Second, protect yourself emotionally and financially. Document everything. And third, know that the pain does fade. You will feel whole again, even if it doesn't seem possible now. You can either let the betrayal break you, or you can use it to rebuild yourself into someone stronger. Thank you for listening.